You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
The source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the prophets.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high, a lot of things.
State of MedTech.
With your host, Omar and Khateeb.
Topic for today is top of funnel, okay? And it's a topic that Orat and I always talk about. It's really important. And let me share the image. I shared this image on LinkedIn earlier this week. So let me just zoom in a little bit. Can you guys see that? See my screen? All right. So okay, perfect. Oh, and Orat, you got the, yeah, you can let people in. Yeah. So where medtech CEOs have it wrong. So let's start. This is your typical funnel. I want to make a comment real quick. And I think, Orat, you feel the same way. Funnels are a little bit outdated because there's people who, not everybody goes through the linear journey, but for visualization purposes, I think funnels are good, okay? And so if we look at top, middle, and bottom of the funnel, let's start just with the bottom, right? This is where the most budget goes to. This is where every medtech company focuses on, which is reasons to believe in the solution. So that's like customer testimonials, features, like why is it better, technical specs, everything. This is like our industry literally lives down here, okay? All your competitors are clamoring around here. Some of the people who are a little bit better at marketing put some budget to middle of funnel, which is like, hey, this is what our company culture and mission is, a little bit about the product, and a little bit more education around solution, right? When you think about education around the solution, think of it like this. If your company is, let's say, a robotic company, let's say it's XYZ Robotics and we solve this orthopedic challenge, right? That's still product related. But if we talk about, hey, we believe that this orthopedic procedure is best solved through robotics, right? Now you're educating more around the solution, not the product, okay? Very little budget is up here, which is non-branded content around the problem we solve. And the reason why I believe that a lot of budget is not allocated here is because while it is important to have this big top of funnel, it's very hard to track ROI here. And most marketers don't know how to educate their executive team around this. And so when they get pressed, they just decide not to put money here because it's not something that they're used to doing, nor are they used to reporting on it. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about why is it important to have a strong top of funnel. But let me come back here. I'm going to pull up another image in a second. But Orat, why don't you kick it off for us?
Yeah, so just in terms of the measurement and tracking, I think everyone's been trained that it's all about the leads, and we're all about tracking that conversion process. And you just have to be very careful because there are very few target individuals at the bottom of the funnel. Not everyone is market ready to buy by today, but you have a bunch of people that could be in market at just at a future date, and all the bottom of funnel stuff misses out on those individuals. And then it neglects basically everyone that's at the top of the funnel, whether they're in this problem aware stage or kind of the solution aware stage. And really on focus for people that are like actively in this buying mode. I think companies really focus on this because everyone wants to say, hey, what's the lead number? Like where are our leads, where are our MQLs? And that's where you get these bottom of funnel metrics. But then without really focusing on the education piece up front, you tend to see like longer sales cycles, harder for individuals to close. Or when people do book these kind of bottom of funnel demo meetings, your team spends a lot of time educating them. That education that could have happened steps, weeks ahead of time through some of these additional channels, through digital content. So it's something that we see quite a bit, is that everyone kind of wants to jump to, or it's like everyone wants to jump towards the sales, everyone wants to jump towards the demos. And a lot of times you're 5 steps or so removed from actually being at that point, and you end up with leads that sit in your CRM that just constantly just have to be worked.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think the other side of it that I want to remind people is that, let me come back to my screen here to bring up one of my favorite charts that I bring this up so many times, okay? Which is for any new product, you're really focusing on this very early side innovators, right? People who get the vision. Like they don't ask to see multiple clinical studies. Many of you are startup marketers, so like you don't have a bunch of clinical studies, you don't have a bunch of KOLs, etc. These people are willing to adopt a product when they see the future with their eyes closed, meaning that like they're not going to say, oh, like how many papers have been published on this, who else is using it, blah 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 blah, right? The problem though is that it's hard to find these people, And most of these people, they're not aware of your solution yet. They're not aware of the education on the solution or the product. And so the idea is you need to go top of funnel. And the way that I like to think about top of funnel is that this is the place where you get attention, right? I always mention it. If you cannot get attention, you cannot persuade. And so getting attention for human beings psychologically isn't about marketing a product or solution. We scan things based on problems. And it's a very evolutionary concept in the sense that looking for good things and solutions and positivity, all these things, was not a survival mechanism that existed thousands of years ago. What was scanning the horizon and scanning your environment for problems. In our world, in the digital world, it's scanning things that are questions to problems, right? Google's $1 trillion company, not because it starts with giving you solutions. It starts with giving you the opportunity to ask a query, right? A problem. All right. What are your best thoughts? What are your thoughts on some of the best practices in terms of what's considered like good top of funnel marketing?
Yeah, really great question. I do want to clarify something though, because I think a lot of times when people think of top of funnel marketing, we all assume, or a lot of people assume, like the BuzzFeedification of like content, like the top 5 things, the 5 XYZs of whatever. And I don't think that's really not the point that we're trying to make in terms of how you should be thinking of content. Like, 'cause at the end of the day, if you're targeting a CEO or CMO or healthcare professional or whatever it may be, they're not looking for like the 5 reasons to do X, Y. Like, they're looking to see like real insights, like industry insights. They're looking to see thought leadership. And I think there's a way to do that actually provides real value. And it's not just trying to get someone to read an article, to watch a video. So it's really emphasizing the pain points that your target market is seeing, like understanding and sharing your worldview and why they should be adopting your worldview and your old way of thinking versus the new way of thinking, or the new way that things should be, is really how we like to think about that, right? It's, once again, it's not the making content just for the sake of making content, just to push things out there or push blog posts out there. It's really finding ways to provide value and I think really insights and like deep insights, deep learnings into kind of a future way of the way that something should be.
Exactly. And I think that the other side of it is that, and I'm a big pictures guy. So I'm going to bring up another picture just to highlight this point, because again, I don't think every marketer, every CEO that I talk to about like top of funnel, they all nod and everybody agrees. Yeah, you need more top of funnel content, but then they don't put it into practice. And so I want to show you like how you should be thinking about this. So I'm going to bring up that funnel again. Okay. So if we think about 2 things, and you should always be asking yourself this: what's the level of market awareness, right? And what's the direction of messaging? So when you're here at the top of funnel, these are the most least aware people. They don't know about you. They don't know about your product. They don't even know about the solution to the problem yet, or if they even have a problem, right? And so when you're up here, if they're the most least aware, your messaging has to be indirect. What does that mean? Indirect messaging means that you have things that are just going to get attention, right? It's not direct messaging, which is, hey, here's our product and the features of it and why it's better, et cetera, et cetera. That's why a lot of marketers spend a lot of time and money here with direct messaging around their product, assuming that they're targeting the most aware people, when in reality, they're using this direct messaging up here in top of funnel and then spending money and saying, oh, it's not working. Like, this platform sucks, or my ads don't work, or like, we tried this, it doesn't work. And in reality, it's just that your marketing needs to be improved, and you need to think. I always go back to this, which is like, what is a level of market awareness, right? And even companies who have been around for many years now, they think they have like full market awareness. They still don't. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that so far? No? All right.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think in the medtech and digital health world, we don't see as many good examples. But what are some good examples, whether it's in vertical SaaS or consumer, of good top of funnel content or marketing that you've seen?
Oh, yeah, put me on the spot here. I'll have to think, because normally I have some pretty good examples off the top of my head. I will say, just because everyone knows this company, I will use the example, and I think I've used this before, of like butterfly networks. At least in this space that we're in right now, I generally think they've done a pretty good job of building out that like tofu, mofu, kind of bofu type examples. And a lot of things that they've done really well is like how they leverage videos, how they leverage like kind of this user-generated content to showcase some of these pain points. You have this big clunky ultrasound device, and now you have this thing that basically fits in your pocket. And they've done a really good job of showing how easy it is to take it from one place to the next, showing, for example, some of the more product type features where it's the clarity of the device. So hey, the old way is a little bit blurry, this way shows much deeper insights. So I think they've done a really good job. I'm trying to think of some other companies like non in this industry. But as a whole, I always like to look at B2B SaaS, B2B tech, because they tend to be 5 years ahead of almost any majority of things that you see in the healthcare space. And so if you look at some of the tech companies like a Metadata or some of these other industries, they do a really good job of doing, for example, like first-party research, where they're asking their target customers, compiling thoughts from industry, and then sharing that as a top-of-funnel research. Like, hey, these are all the problems that, for example, chief marketing officers are having, and we're not just making up one of those generic BuzzFeed type lists. We're actually pulling together our resources. We've interviewed, say, 30 of our customers. We've compiled a general consensus on this is where spend's going, these are the problems that people are seeing, and using that to then create additional assets. But you've put me on the spot, so now
I know, I'm sorry. I know.
If you didn't ask me, I could tell you, but now that you've asked me, I can't tell you.
And I think, I'm a terrible co-host, dude. I'm sorry. No, I think from my end, again, when I think of top of funnel content, this is where, again, I feel that CEOs and marketers get really uncomfortable here because they get so used to having to track things directly to some kind of return. Like you go to a conference, how many leads do we get if we do a campaign? And the fact of the matter, we have to all remember, number one, forget about MedTech, for example. Okay, I bought these cool headphones. They're called Shocks. It's really interesting. They actually don't go into your ear. It's like bone conducting technology. Okay. This is $100 decision. For this $100 decision, this company marketed to me in so many different ways, right? Including things that are going to get my attention. And I mentioned that because if that's $100 decision, if you're making a $100,000 decision, $1 million decision, right? There's so many other things that come into play, including the complexity of the sales cycle. We know that the sales cycle for a lot of our products is complex, but we don't translate that to the marketing side. And so what that means is that in terms of your market, let's say I'm going to make this up. Let's say there's 10,000 of your ideal customer in the United States, okay? You have to find some way to get the attention of those people. It's not always going to be the middle and bottom of the funnel of your product. Sometimes, and I'll give you a great example of this from my time at Potrero Medical. We launched a podcast, okay? So this is like very top of funnel. We launched a podcast where we would interview critical care physicians on different topics, mainly around the problem we solve, which is acute kidney injury. But we interviewed them about a variety of different things in critical care medicine, et cetera. So that's enough to get attention. When we did those interviews, okay, and I know some of you are saying, oh, Omar, I can't do a podcast. Hold on, you don't have to do a podcast. You can even interview people for a blog or whatever it is. But every time we went to a conference, we do these interviews. I would take a photo with one of the people that I interviewed and I'd post it. And we did this for months. And so that's top of funnel content because essentially it's getting the attention of people and saying, oh, this company and this guy, Omar, was like in a picture with one of my peers and they're at this thing and everything. And so that got a physician to lean in because we got their attention and they were curious, like, what does this company do? That's when they start going into middle and bottom of funnel. And then eventually at one point, he commented on one of our posts saying, oh, I didn't know you were at this conference. I wish we could have met up. That led me to message him in LinkedIn DM. And believe it or not, that turned into one of the 3 IRB researchers that produced a paper that gave breakthrough designation, FDA breakthrough designation for the device. So my point is that when you think about top of funnel, to make it as simple as possible is to say, look, the doctor that you're trying to get the attention of doesn't put on their white coat and turn into doctor mode and go into work. They're in human mode, meaning that you're competing with Red Bull and Liquid Death and like all these other brands for that finite attention, okay? So what do you do at the top of funnel to get their attention? So on a sales side, like here's top of funnel sales attention is just going and commenting on one of their posts. Has nothing to do with you or your company or anything, but that's like getting attention top of funnel. The key to all of this is that in order to move people towards persuasion and adoption, it starts with getting attention. If all you're doing is competing at the bottom and middle of the funnel where people have a problem identified and they're looking for a solution, you're spending a lot of money there where somebody may have already made their decision on a product they have to adopt. You have to go higher above the funnel to get people before they have the problem, educate them, engage them, and then the day that they have a problem, they think of you. One last thing, I'm a little bit on a roll here. All right, let me get this one piece in.
Go for it.
Let me get this one piece in. If you guys look at my business model, like I have a growth agency, we do marketing, right? That's how we pay the bills around here. My podcast is literally the very top of funnel. I started a podcast for a reason. If you think about it, up until we're now in year 2 of that podcast, we haven't done much marketing stuff. All of it has just been top of funnel with like CEOs, investors, and everything. Why? Because I get attention that way. And the moment I get attention, people who don't know me lean in and say, who's Omar Khateeb? What does he do? And that's when they start going through the funnel. But it all starts with getting attention. Otherwise, and I know a lot of people on this call are going to nod their head, or they're going to try not to nod their head. Otherwise, what you end up doing is spending an exorbitant amount of money hiring more and more salespeople to try and pound the pavement and break down the door to get a demo. That's a business model that can work, but it requires a lot of money. Most of you don't have that money. All right, go ahead, please jump in.
Yeah, there are a couple of, there's been some like research and reports on B2B buying and decision making. And I think some of the latest stats have shown like 70 to 80% of B2B buyers already have a short list of 3 companies before they ever schedule a demo, right? So that means if you are not basically working the crowd and doing those steps beforehand, when someone actually is ready to buy, they've already picked your competitors. And then you now on the back end are facing an uphill battle of comparing your product against a product that's already in the hearts and minds potentially of your customers. And so you're fighting, trying to roll that boulder uphill, right? So I think that's one of the points that we're trying to make here is it takes some work to build that level of awareness, to build the engagement, to eventually get you to the conversions. But there's probably should be a little bit more emphasis placed on things prior towards that direct book the demo, hop on the sales call, buy the product now. So that's the first point I want to make there. And the other point is, I don't think we both mean to get on here and like bash bottom of the funnel. Like bottom of the funnel.
Bottom of the funnel is where you make money.
It's where you make money, right? Like
where you make money.
Yeah, so that's a critical point. And like a lot of times when we work with clients, we do start there because that is the low hanging fruit. That is the quickest path to direct to revenue, right? Is that, but you have to have people that are active in the market and specifically know the need and looking for your product, right? So if you have a new category or people don't know how to search for your product or look up your product, going to the directly to bottom funnel is an incredibly hard place to be in because no one knows how to find you, no one knows to look for you, to look for your category or whatever it may be, right? If you're in an existing market with tons of other competitors and everyone's just searching for the best XYZ product or software or tool, start with bottom of funnel. Like that is absolutely where you should be because you already have someone else, the market has already done the work for you. If you're starting from scratch though, you have to take those steps back. And I think part of what we're really trying to articulate is we've seen a lot of companies, they're new entrant to the market, working on a new category or new whatever it may be, and they directly go towards all this bottom of funnel stuff, assuming that everyone else in the market, all the physicians, all the hospital networks out there, whoever it may be, already knows about this, and that is far from the truth. Like we are in our bubble, your CEO's in his bubble, and there's no one outside the bubble that knows what the hell you're doing other than you and your investors and a couple of other handful of people. So I think that's one of the points I'm trying to make. I'm totally bottom of the funnel. That is where you make your money. That's where all the conversions happen. That's where we spend a lot of our time. It's just you really need to be aware of and know where your company is, where you are in the market, and how you need to adjust your strategy to adopt to those buyer's journey and market and the market's level of awareness. So I just want to make that point before everyone comes up here like, oh my God, they told us not to do bottom of funnel content. I'm just like, no, that's not what we said.
Look, 100% I agree with you, and I'm glad you pointed that out. Again, like bottom of funnel is where you optimize. That's really where you see the conversions make money. When you get acquired, because many are in startups, when somebody's acquiring you, they're looking for a business model and system that has that part somewhat optimized that can be essentially bolted on. But again, because I'm a simple man that likes pictures, I'm just going to bring this up. If you think about any new product launch, and this is the technology adoption curve, in reality, could you pick up like some people who are in the early or late majorities like that? Yeah, like sure, that happens by accident. But in reality, you're trying to find these people over here who get it, who are going to advocate for the product, and they're a cheat code because they're going to say, hey, here's like 5 or 10 other people just like me. And you may not have even heard those people. When you're just focused on middle and bottom of the funnel, this is essentially what you're doing is you're moving this thing around to try and capture some of this market share, and you're barely skimming the surface. Versus what we're telling you to do is add that bottom of the or that top of funnel, and now you have something that spans the entire technology adoption curve in terms of who's out there. Because look, this group of people here that are innovators and early adopters, there's not a lot of them. There's actually fewer than you might actually even hypothesize. And that's the key here, is that it's a hypothesis on who you think those people are. Just because XYZ surgeon adopted robotics 10 years ago doesn't mean that they're in the market for something new again. That's not how psychology works. I'm like a super innovator for certain products, and I'm like a laggard for others, right? And so you have to always keep that in mind. And again, the way you solve for finding these people as fast as possible, because again, you have to find them / they have to find you, and there's an education and adoption process, right, that has to happen before they convert. In order to do that, this is where you solve it through marketing, and it's solved specifically through top of funnel, where you get attention and then you move them down. At the end of the day, this is the last thing I'm going to hit on, and let's get straight into Q&A unless Orat has anything else to say. Some marketers, and I talked about this last week, some marketers have this concept when they're in limited release, which is like, oh, but Omar, we're in limited release, and every doctor we've talked to gets it. So we don't want to have too much demand to service that we can't, like God forbid, which to me is just the dumbest thing. It's a terrible mental frame, because what it's saying is like, hey, right now when I can capture this demand and pack the hell out of my pipeline and then just say, hey, some people, we can't service those customers yet, or we get to them later, you're assuming that 6 months, a year from now, that same demand and attention that was there before is going to be there again, and you'll be able to. It's a terrible idea. You get like one shot. Things get a lot harder later on. And so it's better to have the problem of, hey, we have more business than we know what to deal with. And then you figure out what you focus on and move forward, versus, hey, I feel so good as a marketer. We got the 3 to 5 limited release sites. Then you wait for 9 to 12 months. And now you have a sales team of 3, 5, 10 people who are wanting deals. You have a board demanding, hey, we want revenue goals to be hit. And now you're freaking out. And this is where Oret and I, we've had clients and people come to us, and they have all kinds of terrible behaviors because they're like, we need more leads. We need more. And it just doesn't happen that way. Oret, I'll let you have the final thought, and we'll jump into Q&A.
Yeah, not necessarily final thought, but I'll add on to this that we've seen this quite a few times. Because you talked about the limited release. I've seen the wait list fiasco that goes on. And something that we've experienced that companies get caught up in this is, hey, we do the limited release, we do the wait list, we've got so much demand and interest. And then when it actually goes towards making the sale or getting people on the hook for product or service, it fizzles out. Nothing ever comes of it, right? And how I like to think about it, it's easy for someone to join the wait list, right? There's no commitment, there's no friction, right? And so when it comes time for them to actually move forward and move further down your pipeline, it doesn't happen. I think a lot of companies that we've seen, they over commit and overemphasize, oh my God, we've got 500 people on our wait list. And then you look at the conversion of those 500 people on the wait list, and it ends up being 0. And they have to start over from scratch, change their CTAs, change whatever their pricing to actually get people to commit, because they overemphasize probably the same thing on a limited release or on a wait list. They overemphasize for these, I'll call them non-commitment actions. Joining a wait list is like signing up for a newsletter. There's zero value to it. It may look good to investors or whatever to say, hey, yeah, we've got XYZ on our actual wait list. But I'm always a fan of if I don't have if I don't have a dollar committed, there's not a lead there. It's just might as well just be like, it's a cold email pretty much to me.
Exactly.
So.
People underestimate how long it takes for people to get educated and take action and convert.
Or how hard it is. It's incredibly
How hard it is. Yeah, that's right. And things happen. If you think about your pipelines, how many times have you been in a deal rep or a quarterly review where some deal is, man, these people are hot, they're going to adopt and everything, and then something happens, right? In the world of something happens, you want a pipeline to go back to and be like, hey, look, XYZ hospital or this physician, they've been in our pipeline, they've engaged, they've consumed these emails, this content and everything. They're at least aware. Their level of awareness is higher versus, again, having to go back to the well and say, hey, we're going to start cold again. Doesn't matter how hard you work, like you can't accelerate somebody's time to learn about the problem, the solution, your product, consider to buy, etc. It just takes time. So that being said, let's open it up to the floor. It's Q&A time. You can ask us questions or share any thoughts or comments on the topic that we just discussed. Or if you have something specific that relates to you and your business, this is the time to ask it. And we're open to everything. That's both sales and marketing related. Don't all go at once.
Do you want to, let's get, is it Sheila's question? Let's just start with that one. And as everyone kind of gets warmed up and starts typing there.
Do you want me to ask it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll take you on. Sorry.
Hello. I figured before I knew what anybody else did on the call, I'd feel brave and just go in and ask the questions. Yeah, Ort was talking at the beginning about having thought leadership, do worldviews, like old way of thinking versus your new thinking, like creating that deep content. But my question was like, just give me the practical application. Where is that? Where am I doing that? Is it in my head, I have to wrap around, is it in a LinkedIn post? You mentioned, Omar, about commenting on people's posts, saying something smart and intelligent, liking a post, but can you just give me a few examples of where that deep content is being presented?
Absolutely. Can I jump in on this real quick, Orad?
Yeah, go ahead. I got some thoughts as well, too.
Yeah, because I know Sheila's company and product is a really cool product. The answer is you have to be the embodiment of this worldview. So if you look at, and I'll criticize myself here, I don't think I've done a good enough job still, and I need to work more on that. My POV is that medtech marketing and sales is outdated, it's ineffective, it sucks. Here's the new way. And whether it's through my posts, I'm on a podcast, I'm on a panel, I'm talking to somebody in a conference, whatever. You have to see yourself almost like a prophet of a religion and you're preaching the new world, right? And part of this is very important to creating a new category. You have to be divisive. You have to take a stand for something. And if your point of view isn't getting some people to disagree, it's not a strong point of view. Remember, and that goes back to the key of how do you get attention? The way you get attention isn't by being like vanilla. You have to have a very clear, this is us, this is the things that people like us do here, and then there's these other people, right? So for me and Orad, we like using digital. We think about really innovative ways to drive growth. We optimize for sales and everything. And then there's this other stuff, which is like big, boring, blue chip medtech marketing. We're going to spend a bunch of money and throw a bus wrap up on everything. We don't do that. Orad, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you did answer great to that question. I think tactically, yes, the answer is like all places where your customers are, and like emphasize for the personal interaction. So what I mean by that is don't necessarily post from your company LinkedIn, post from your personal LinkedIn or the CEO's personal LinkedIn, because that has not only will that get the widest reach, but also people buy from people, right? So like I want to see the thoughts of your CEO and why he believes or she believes this is the way of the future versus the like rehashed PR press release from your company page, right? The corporate jargon speak versus no, this is actually how we think and believe. And then like tactically, we're obviously big fans of podcasts and things like this, doing like the customer interviews. We've seen some companies and we work with companies where we have a 30-minute block on the CEO's calendar. And like, hey, this is where I'm going to ask you questions or you're going to post a topic and I'm just going to quickly interview you to capture those insights, transcribe and record, splice and dice the video. You have your written assets that you can then also do the same thing and use that as part of your distribution wheel as tactically wise was something that you can do there. And we've even set up Slack channels where it's just like CEO weekly thoughts. Hey, I'm seeing this in the market. Can I just quickly get you to jot down your thoughts and opinions on it? And that way you cut your base. Do the Zoom 30-minute, hopefully get the Slack channel, and kind of go from there and use that to build up your assets, plus whatever you're getting from your customers or from hearing from the market. Use that to compile, and then obviously add in your kind of world building view to it. But hopefully that's good. I wanted to give you a tactical piece of how we've done something like this before in the past.
And something just for everybody to look up. One is I provided the links in the Zoom for those who are listening, the recording. One is if you Google category pirates and look at the article, The Power of a Point of View, that's one. The other one is that they have a book called The 22 Laws of Category Design. One of the main guys behind category design, Christopher Lockhead, good friend of mine, is really intense. He's a very polarizing figure, but as a result of it, he's able to get attention about the worldview that he has, which is in order to create a category, you have to be really good at creating a strong point of view, a divisive point of view, and you have to be the number one marketer of the category and the problem, not the product. And if you think about it, if you're the number one marketer and voice of the category and product, category and the problem, then by default, people come to you for that solution.
Another great person to follow on this topic is April Dunford. Like obviously awesome, and a couple of other books as well too. Just overall, just general like positioning and things like that. So two really great. Those are my go-to for all things like strategic narrative and positioning and being like an opinion. Because I think they both do a really good job in like the B2B tech world for this. So I also dropped the link. And the Amazon link is there for everyone as well too.
And Shella, I feel like you would just crush this because, and for everybody's context, Shella, can you give like the quick one sentence pitch on what your company is and what the product does?
I empower knee replacement patients to have a faster, less painful recovery.
Perfect. And at home without a physical therapist. And so
Yes.
Shella, when she came on my podcast, absolutely, which I loved it, ripped the current state of like how orthopedic surgeons think about knee replacements, how physical therapists do it. And so it's extremely polarizing because it's going to piss off most people. But most people are not your customer right now. It's some people. And the key is, what do you do to create a very strong signal to noise so some of those people are like, that's what I've been thinking for the longest time. I totally agree. And now there's a physical thing in the real world that helps manifest and solve this problem that has been bugging me this whole time, right? Make sense? Just know that in this process, like, don't, as a marketer, as a founder, don't get discouraged because you're going to get a lot of rejection, a lot of no's, a lot of naysayers, a lot of hate, depending on how strong of a POV that is. That's just getting you closer and closer to yes. You have to just, it's more important in sales to figure out who's not a customer versus who is a customer. Because then those are the people you focus on selling to, you focus on taking care of. Same, Orat and I started this Zoom for a reason. You're our people, and the people who are listening to this are our people. Most medtech marketers don't vibe well with Orat and I. All right, I'll speak for myself. They don't vibe well with me. I think Orat's maybe a little bit more personable.
Only slightly more.
Only slightly more. All right, awesome. Shella, thank you so much for the question. Who's next? Who's got another question? Feel free to send it to us anonymously in chat or just unmute yourself. And again, it could be about today's topic or something unrelated.
And then I guess while we're waiting on questions, feel free to obviously drop things in. Something that I think companies, like as we're talking about top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, like they each require different assets. So we've talked some about content, but they also require like different landing pages. And one thing that we've seen is companies will just have the same like homepage, maybe have a vertical page for a specific vertical that they're targeting, but they don't have individual landing pages based necessarily on the stage, right? So on the bottom of funnel side, those are going to be your requested demo type pages. You're going to have your info, like what you get from your demo. In the middle of funnel, those could be specific pages that are broken down, just highlighting the why us versus them, right? Or like old way versus new way. Someone's already probably been to your website, is already aware of the product solution. So now the next landing page, the next pages that you can show them are those types of pages. And as you build things layered on, like top of funnel doesn't even necessarily need to be or might not even be on your website. Like top of funnel can technically happen all on other platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, or what have you, because those are the channels that people are engaged on. They're not necessarily going to think, oh, let me just go to your website and hang out there. So a lot of times top of funnel happens in platform. There's a lot of talk, at least recently, about like zero click. No one actually ever clicks out to go read your top of funnel blog post. They're just going to read it right on your LinkedIn profile. They're going to read it right on your CEO's page. And then it may be weeks or months later that they then decide to, hey, let me go Google that topic that is now relevant to me. And then they find you. All right. So keep some of this in mind. But I always find this interesting that top of funnel doesn't always happen on your blog or on your website, which was like a very old way of thinking about this.
Exactly. Something else I'll add, or I'd like just in terms of like tangible examples, is a really easy. As much as we talked about top of funnel, there are some things that like many new marketers need to ease your CEOs into considering, and the board. They're not going to go for everything. So something that's like tangible where they get it and they'll understand it is like doing in my opinion, like a live stream webinar versus a closed webinar, but either or, and focusing on that webinar on the topic of a problem, right? And again, I'll use Sheila's example. If she has a device that it helps patients rehabilitate their knees at home, the webinar could be something about the current state of knee rehabilitation and what's wrong with it, right? It says nothing about the product, but it's problem focused so that the people who are really into that one thing are like, oh, this is for me, right? To make it if you want to strengthen it even more, the state of knee rehabilitation and what every PT needs to know. Now you have an identifier where somebody's like, oh, that's somebody, like look at MedTech growth levers. We specifically mentioned that this is for MedTech marketers and sales leaders. All right, so that's an identifier. And then in that webinar, let's imagine you don't have a KOL or somebody. Sometimes it's really good just to get somebody who is really into that problem, who signals as an authority figure to the customer base you're trying to reach, and have them come on and say, hey, like, this is what my device does. You don't have to promote it and everything, but can we talk about like the current state of like where we are in this problem, what the challenges are, et cetera, et cetera. I have a slide on my product. If you don't mind, like we'll touch on it. You can mention that you're not a customer, but I just want to do this as a way to give an update on where things are in our space, what the problem is, and some innovative solutions around it. And believe it or not, you can get somebody to commit to that, right? So that's just like one way that you can do it, that a CEO or board would be like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. And when you get the results of that, you can do some sort of even more like top of funnel stuff. Just as an example, if you think about this, oh, sorry, go ahead, Orad, go ahead.
No, it's finish your thought and then I'll hop in and chime in on mine.
For some of you guys are in growth stage companies, recruiting talent is really difficult and expensive, right? So if you think about top of funnel, a lot of companies market like, oh, we have such cool technology and our mission is so cool and everything, which is all fine. But you know what a lot of people want to see is like, hey, is this a cool and fun company to work for? And like a lot of tech companies in Silicon Valley do a great job of this, of posting. You know what, who does a great job? You know what, this is from our industry. I got to give a shout out to this guy. He's a great CEO and founder, and that's the founder of Brain Lab. I'm going to bring up his post right now. This is literally, when I saw this, I'm like, oh, that's top of funnel for culture. Okay. So Brain Lab is a remarkable company in the spine and neurosurgery space. Can you see my screen?
Yep, you're live.
Okay. This is a top of funnel post. You have no idea what this company does, what space, like you don't know anything about them. But literally, if you're an employee on LinkedIn and you see this and you're like, oh, what is this company like? Like how many employees all got together to do this activity? That seems like a really cool company with great culture and everything. And what are they going to do from here? They're either going to click in to learn about the founder or CEO, or they're going to be like, oh, what is this company, Brain Lab? Now they're on here and they're like learning, oh, this is what the company does, blah, blah. And now they're going through their own funnel, but as a potential employee. This is the reason why companies do that kind of stuff, because it's a great way, again, to go top of funnel and attract more employees versus the bottom and middle of funnel. You hire, by the way, I'm pro recruiters, by the way, but you hire a recruiter and they're working bottom and middle of the funnel, which is where all your competitors are competing for all this talent. Meanwhile, there's some talented people that are top of funnel that you haven't even considered that may not even be on the job market yet until they see your company, they see your mission and say, yeah, you know what? I've been at this company for like 10 years. I'm sick of it. This seems like the next best step for me, right? And now you've activated. Same thing with a product. You guys all have a hypothesis and list of potential customers. There might be a customer out there who's not even on that list of yours, for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's somebody who came out of fellowship. They don't have the procedure volume for them to even be tagged in your initial data research, but they see your company, they see the problem you solve and be like, man, this is the thing that's going to help me build my career. And I want to change my identity to be like an XYZ physician, a robotic surgeon, a AI cardiologist, whatever. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So different, slight change of topic here, but I'm curious just to know, like, people that are here with us that have been hanging out with us here for almost an hour, kind of who's in marketing, like who's in sales. Just drop it in the chat really quickly, because I'm curious to know what that breakdown is. So I'd love to know that. And then something I want to talk about is Omar and I are biased. Like, we're both marketers, but we work very closely with sales teams. And I think one of the realize this now is, like, we've talked about this top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel from like the marketing perspective. But really there's a sales angle to this as well too. That's like incredibly important. And like marketing and sales, like these stages of awareness where people are, like, play very closely together with each other. And if you have a great marketing team that has this mapped out, paired with a great sales team that also understands this as well too, there is a leverage of these assets in the sales process, right? So if a lead or prospect isn't quite ready yet to move forward, they can get looped back into the top of funnel or middle of funnel assets, whether that be the webinar. If there are common, say, objections that are happening in sales meetings, like that information gets relayed to then become new middle of funnel content or even bottom of the funnel content, right? And creates this really excellent feedback loop of, here's what we're hearing from when we talk to prospects and customers. No, don't zoom in. Here's what we're hearing when we talk to and zoom in for prospects and customers. Here's how we adjust that. And I completely lost my train of thought with my new camera here. Here's how we adjust that. And then using that information to then, like I said, create a more impactful overall, like, marketing and sales alignment and presence within your market, kind of using the two teams to, one's your listening arm, one's the execution arm, to produce these assets.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And just on that same note, I tell people this all the time. As a marketer, your most valuable and also expensive asset is the sales team. And so when you produce content, assets, etc., it's important for you to get buy-in from the sales team, but more importantly, teach them how to use these assets, even if it means like them creating their own posts on LinkedIn. There's a big difference between when you post on the company page and all the salespeople reshare it, which, by the way, is not very effective, versus when the sales team takes that exact same, let's say, photo or asset you post on the company page. The sales team has some guidelines as to what they can say, and they create their own content and post. That's a way more effective. You'll get like a 10x reach in that way.
Awesome. I see a lot of, we got a good mix here, between marketing and sales. So good to see that we've got both sides represented. It's a team. Everyone's responsible for revenue at the end of the day. So there's no, we brought the leads in and sales didn't close it. It's no, everyone's responsible for bringing revenue and bringing pipeline at the end of the day to everyone's companies. Something I always say for all the marketers is, your sales team should be your best friend. You should be meeting with them on a regular cadence to really understand, one, how the marketing is performing in terms of the lead quality and things like that, but two, to gain their insights. There's not a time where I've ever met with any of the clients that we're talking to, hung out with, or talked to their sales team, that I didn't learn something that I could then immediately the next day go back and apply to our marketing, or something that we can add to the website, whether it's updating the FAQ or, hey, testing different messaging, pricing, whatever it may be. That's your front line to those insights. And then same thing on the sales team, communicate with what you're learning, what you're seeing, because marketing can be sales at scale, and marketing can help sales close deals quicker, faster, and easier if there's alignment.
Completely agree. Otherwise, everybody's in silos, and then you guys are at each other's throats at the end of every quarter.
The blame game. Hey,
Yeah.
we were supposed to get 500 X devices sold, and it's marketing's fault because they didn't get us the leads, and marketing's looking at sales like, hey, we get you leads, but you didn't call them in time or follow up. You only send one follow-up email instead of setting up the 5 that we told you to do, or everyone's got their excuses. Really, it's just like, we're all responsible for this. How do we get the best alignment across the board?
100%. 100%. Let's see. Any other? Oh, we got so anonymous question. What are the top 3 reasons for a high abandoned cart issue? Oh, that's I love that it's a consumer specific question. Okay. Top three reasons for a high abandoned cart issue. I'll give my top three, and all right, I'm wondering what yours are. Top three reasons. Number one, the person got distracted. They got distracted, and I don't know, they're watching TV, they're doing something, right? Which is why, and by the way, just so for the B2B marketers, abandoned cart issue means like somebody's about to buy your product. This is a consumer product. They put it into. Danny's like, I had to Google. I appreciate that Danny is honest about this. It's good. This is a safe place, guys. If you don't know what it is, it's okay. So high abandoned cart issue means that it's a B2C product. They put it in the cart, they're about to check out, and then they don't. So billions and billions of dollars are lost every year because of this issue across industries. Number one is they get distracted, which is why you'll see that sometimes when you're doing a checkout, the first thing they ask for is like, hey, what's your email? What's your cell phone? Because that's actually more important than your credit card number. Because as soon as they have that, they can send an automated message. And just as a small tip for everybody, with bigger brands, go ahead and do that and put it in your account and then don't buy. Because usually you'll get a follow-up email saying, hey, like you didn't check out, like here's a discount code. Yeah. Right? Because they would rather discount it down than lose the revenue, right? So that's number one. The second thing is maybe the problem wasn't as pressing, right? There's so many reasons after that, but the number one reason, something came up, they got distracted, which is why you need to have the systems in place, both email and if possible text, to follow up and nudge them towards that purchase. Orette, you go ahead.
I've got one, and this is the reason why, and it simply boils down to fear. Like fear that this isn't going to do work as expected or as promised. That's it. If you had a cure for cancer someone wanted to check out, they would buy it every time, versus you selling snake oil, I don't know. So it's really just fear that something is going to do as promised. And I think how companies, so this is an issue for B2B companies as well too. It's like, how do you make a guarantee, right? Hey, you can try this free for 30 days, no questions asked. Like, you see this all the time with the mattress companies, right? How do you buy a mattress online? That's a big hurdle, right? This is something you sleep on every day, and they figured out how to do it. So sleep on this free for a year. No questions asked, return it, right? So it's like, how do you bake in guarantees and things like that into your product or your offering on your checkout page or whatever you need to do beforehand, right? And then the other big piece is social proof, right? And enabling people to gather all the information that they need. The example that I'll use is I recently, we're expecting a baby here, September. I went on the quest of trying to get water filters for our faucets, right? Spent hours researching water filters. I was all over Reddit, watched every single YouTube video that I could find. I was all over Amazon. Found a couple that said that they promised that we meet the, I think NSF, whatever rating it is, 53 and 47. End up Googling it. They don't, they're not on the website. Didn't buy, right? End up buying from a Shark Tank company, Hydro Fiv or whatever they're called. Thousands of reviews. They met all my requirements. Everything on YouTube, Reddit was saying, yes, this is great. And then a day, they eliminated my fear of purchasing. And they did a really good job of, I had questions. I said, hey, I live in this zip code. They literally printed out the water quality rating for our city, all right? Matched it, said this is the reason why we're giving you this filter, went above and beyond, and immediately I got off the chat and purchased it right away. After spending hours scouring the internet looking at other competitors, made my decision within 60 seconds after them responding to a chat and then giving me the information that I hadn't thought to look up myself, right? Yeah, you really just, my recommendation as B2B marketers, look at your behavior as a consumer, how you make purchasing decisions, the things that you do in your research process, if you're making a small decision or a big decision, the time it takes you to make that decision process. And now just imagine that with someone else where their potential job is on the line or their reputation is on the line. So how do you make it so that, hey, like whatever product service, you're going to keep your job, you're going to be happy, you should have no fears or concerns because we're going to deliver on every single promise that we've made. And if we don't, we'll make it up to you. We'll find a way to go above and beyond and make it for you. So to me, those are how I think about it. So hopefully that was helpful to whoever asked that question.
No, 100%. And just, I know we're getting close to time. So the last thing I'll mention, which by the way, before everybody goes, if you guys can turn on your cameras, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a nice family photo, post it on LinkedIn. We can get more people into this. But as everybody turns on your cameras, completely agree with Orette. So at the end of the day, whether it's abandoned cart issue or let's say a deal doesn't go as fast, you have to always ask yourself, is the fear of being wrong, right? Or potentially just making the wrong mistake greater than the fear and pain of staying the same, right? When the current situation and the problem is so painful and causing so much issues, right? That's when people have the fastest conversion rate. And the key is finding those people. Again, I'm translating this to my world. For me, there are certain companies that wanted my agency to help them on the growth side. And it took 4 or 5 months of just conversations back and forth, right? There are other customers who literally closed within 5 days. The moment that they had a meeting with me, 5 days later, signed contract, and invoice paid out. Why? What was the difference? The latter had the much bigger pain in terms of they needed traction as quickly as possible. The pain was just bigger. So at the end of the day, what gets people to change their behavior and make buying decisions is what's the level of pain and urgency they have on solving this problem, right? This is, again, why you have to have a strong, just to bring it back full circle, a strong top of funnel, because until you start talking to these people and putting them in your funnel, you have no idea what their level of urgency and pain is. It could be that they love your product, they agree with everything you say and everything, but it's just not like an urgent thing for them, right? You have to figure that out as quickly as possible. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining. Let's take a quick little family photo. If you can just turn on your video. And for those who are listening on the podcast, check the show notes below. If you want to join, these are free weekly calls every single week. You can join them, whether you're a sales leader, a marketer, a founder, right? Just check the link below and sign up. And let's take that photo. 1, 2, 3, smile. Beautiful. Loved it. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day, wonderful week, and we'll see y'all next time. If you have any questions or any ideas for the next episode or next live, shoot me or Orette a message on LinkedIn, and we'll take it into consideration. Yep. All right, everybody,
have a good
take
one,
care.
everyone.
Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.